Hello and welcome to Lenko Show. This is episode number 140. And today, I'm very, very pleased to say that I am joined by a very special guest, Coach Alex. Am I pronouncing this right now? Alex Wort. Is
Yep, that's it.
that right? Thank God for that. Yeah, apologies for that earlier. I did get his name wrong on Instagram earlier, so that's my bad. I hate doing that as well. I absolutely hate doing that.
It's all right. Literally everyone gets my last name wrong. It's fine.
Yeah.
I've had to grow up with it, so it's
I,
fine. It's not too
I'm the
bad.
same. Everyone gets my last name wrong as well, so it's all good. Anyway, I might have mentioned this speed coach. We're going to get into kind of like the work you've been doing with the Titans over the last sort of 8, 9 months or so, and then we'll build out more from that. But there is an awful lot more to you than just what you've done with the Titans this season. So we are going to get stuck into that, and then we will get stuck into some of the intricacies of speed training, sprinting, and what people can potentially be doing in their training sessions or add to their routines to maximize performance and maximize results.
Mhm.
So just give everyone a bit of an idea if they've not met you before, if they don't know anything about you, if they haven't come across you, just give us a bit of an idea into your background, what you've done previously as an athlete, and what you obviously now do as a coach. Go into a bit more detail about that, mate.
Yeah, so I've been involved in athletics since I was about 7 or 8 years old. So that's a good number of years now. Um, yeah, started off as an athlete. Just went down to the track because friends were going. But I do have a history in athletics with my mum. She used to compete to county level, um, and yeah, started doing athletics. Did bits and sort of did bits and bobs, did a bit of sprinting, and then learnt to love combined events. Basically, I just got bored if I was just doing one event, so I just loved doing absolutely all of them, rather than just turn up, do one race, and go. Um, so yeah, did combined events and represented um, England at under 17 and under 20 level, and Great Britain at under 20 level as well, for decathlon and indoor heptathlon. Um, yeah, did it all the way through university. Sort of went to Brunel Uni to. Um, it originally wanted to be a PE teacher afterwards, and then quickly realised I don't want to do PE teaching. I want to do coaching. After the first year, but got injured quite a bit at uni. Didn't progress as much as I wanted, but fell in love with coaching, teaching, that sort of thing. And then after uni, just went straight. I still did a bit of my own hurdling and things like that, but focused mainly on getting into coaching. Really, again, mainly combined eventers, so heptathletes, decathletes, pentathletes. Um, Done that for a few years. Took jobs doing event work in athletics and sport to sort of supplement the coaching, because when you start coaching athletics, there's no money in it. But anyway, um, there's I did that for a good few years. Done a few different jobs. Took up a job doing event work for Seiko, going around different world athletics champs, and yeah, over the last few years, I've taken on trying to diversify a bit instead of just focusing on athletics, actually looking at footballers, rugby players, American footballers now, and trying to help them get quicker, and using my knowledge of not just speed, but stuff I've learned from combined events to try and strengthen people up and get them into fit and quick shape, really. And yes, landed working with the Titans I started working with some of the players. I think it was end of December into January, and then managed to make some good connections and started working with Titans a month or two after. Uh, it's
Yeah.
been pretty gold after that.
Yeah, I will say I do think it has been a very, very, very valuable addition to the team, and I'm hoping that the entire team actually appreciates it as much as they should because it's I don't understand why it doesn't get more focus and attention in terms of training, and even just having someone specialised at coaching that down at training sessions blows my mind. But
Yeah, yeah,
I think because I'm still on the playing side of it. I'm trying to keep away from the coaching aspect a little bit, but I do know how important it has been. I know
yeah,
a lot of guys have actually benefited from the work you do. I think mean, as much as we probably have to give him a bit of a shout out, but Noosh,
Yeah. Well, he's the one who started it all off for me.
he is indeed.
Yeah.
He is indeed. Because I
Yeah.
know that he had massive ambitions of going to the GFL and playing pro, playing in Europe. He went and found you out. And since then, he's gone from strength to strength. And I think he's had a really good year for himself. And, he's really come on and massively developed as an athlete. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Anything, any kind words you want to say about him? You can say
Well,
it.
yeah. Well, a big thank you to him because if it wasn't for him dropping me a text in sort of late last year, early this year, I wouldn't have gone on this journey with the Titans so far. I probably wouldn't have even contemplated coaching American footballers. Like, it wasn't necessarily a sport that was in my periphery. It was more soccer, football, and rugby that I had access to. So yeah, it's thank you, Noosh, for getting in touch. Yeah.
I just want to go back to your own journey a little bit. You mentioned that you very quickly realized that you didn't want to be a PE teacher. How did
Yeah.
you figure that out?
So we did a module called pedagogy, which is essentially the science of teaching and coaching and learning. And I did, I did my first module of that in my first year of uni. And yeah, I just quickly realised that the way I like coaching is very athlete centered, asking questions of them and trying to coach in that way rather than as a dictator. Even though I know on some of the sessions we've done, because of the environment we're in, I kind of have to do it that way. But my general philosophy is I want to make it athlete centered. Ask them questions, they'll learn better in that way. And I knew I just had that epiphany of if I went into a high school or tried to get a high school teaching job with that philosophy, when you've got 30, 40 kids who 80% of them don't actually want to be in that PE lesson. And I'm trying to go, right, and what did you think of that? And all this sort of thing.
Yeah.
It's not going to work because at the end of the day, PE teaching, in my view, you stay in the job because you do well with the teams, like you get the teams winning trophies or whatever. That's really what keeps you in the PE job, in my view. And that's not really what I wanted to focus on. I wanted to learn on the actual physical education of it instead of the external results um, of getting trophies or whatever for the school teams. So I just quickly realized that actually, if I'm going to want to coach like this or educate like this, then coaching's the way to do it. Like, I can create my own groups and whatnot and have that philosophy and that culture and built the way that I want it to, rather than having that worry about, oh well, am I going to be able to stay in this job at this school because I'm focusing more on holistic learning rather than just, oh, can I make sure the basketball team wins championships and stuff.
Yeah. Do you find how did you find that you had to adapt your style coming to the Titans? Because obviously it is bigger groups, big team, very different to even when I've worked in football, you normally you get a maximum group size of 24 for the squad, and then sometimes that's broken down in smaller positions. Obviously, when you've got as many athletes as we've got, and you mentioned that you don't necessarily like that dictatorial style. Did you have to change that at all? Did you find yourself having to adapt a little bit to that?
Absolutely. That first session I did, um, I remember just it being an absolute whirlwind of a session because, like, George set out the timetable and it's like, right, you're going to have 15 minutes with these guys and you're going to do essentially like 5, 6 sessions of 15 minutes across the 2 hours. Um, and I looked at it and thought, okay, well, let's see how it goes. And that first group of guys was like, right, I need to sharpen this up quick style, like what I want to do. So yeah, I've had to adapt in order to do that. I've had to go that little bit more dictatorish, but I still allowed. It took me a few sessions to be able to find that balance of, yes, I'm dictating to a group of, because we still break it down into groups of maximum 10 realistically, which is still okay for where I can still give the general coaching tips, and then if I spot stuff, I can still, on their walk back from a rep, I can still chat to them and still be watching bits of what others are doing and sort of adapt it that way. So I'm not going wholly towards my preferred. Okay, stop that person, talk to them for like 30 seconds about what they thought and do that. But I can have general themes of what I want to get out of the drills. So it's that more dictatory, but also bringing in my way of going of making sure they, as athletes, are being asked questions, cementing the knowledge that we want put into them, rather than me just going, do this, do this, do this, do this, do this, and they just turn to robots and just go, go, go. Because I just don't think it works in my experience anyway.
Yeah. More sort of drill instructoring than actual coaching.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I've had in the past from other coaches, and I've just been like, well, I, I just don't feel like it cements knowledge very well, in my
Yeah.
view.
Going back to that first session at the Titans, I don't want to stay on the Titans too long at the minute 'cause we'll come back to it later on. But just going back to that first session, was there anything that you looked at afterwards that you thought, like, how did you find the culture and the actual aspect of being there? Like, what was that like? Was there anything that stood out, surprised you, shocked you, kind of thought, oh, like, fucking hell, like, this is different? Because like every sport kind of has different weirdos, doesn't it? I feel like I can call them that. Like everyone has like standout weird nut jobs that kind of epitomize everything about that sport. Doesn't matter whether it's netball, hockey, football, triathletes, you know, American football, rugby, like everyone's got kind of like that stereotypical, you are the epitome of that sport. Like what was it like just being at that first session and then coming out of that?
I'd probably say it was wild is the main descriptor that I'd say. Like compared to what I'm used to with athletics, where yeah, you get, as you say, you get characters in different sports, but when it came to the American football, because you've got those different sections of the team, the characters are all different in each different section. So you get that whole, almost that whole spectrum of personalities. You know, I was like when I first coached the O&D line, and suddenly I've got these like 6'3" brick outhouses coming towards me, and I thought, oh god, what are these guys going to be like? And then turns out they're actually lovely and quite funny and jokey. And I was like, oh well, actually, this I'm not intimidated by you now. This is good. Um, so yeah, it was a bit wild, just sort of trying to figure out how each different cohort worked. But I loved it. Like, and I knew from after that first session, I was like, okay, I've got a lot to learn. I've got a lot to learn on my feet here, but this is great. This is just brilliant learning to have. Yeah.
Like when you say you felt like there was a lot to learn, like what kind of sticks in your mind with regards to that? And
Just being
what
able
have
to
you picked up on as well?
say again, sorry.
And what have you picked up on? What have you learned through that process as well?
Um, so I before going to the Titans, I felt like I was good at working on my feet and in terms of like working on the fly, like being able to adapt to the situations and adapt to different personalities. But as I say, in that 2 hours, when you've got 5, 6 different groups and they're all different personalities, different aims from each type of group,
Mm.
yeah, really had to learn on the fly. Like, right, from going from say wide receivers to O&D line as the next group, it's a very different style of coaching and style of training that you need to do from both. Because they've got different lengths of field they need to cover, different types of speed they need to have, and then obviously the personalities that you have on both sides as well. Whether one side be more arrogant and one side be more casual or whatever, trying to learn on the fly, be like, right, how do I adapt my output and my voice to help them get the most out of the session, rather than I just have dead straight single mindedness all the way through the whole 2 hours
Yeah.
that it's not going to work for everyone. So yeah, learning to adapt like that so quickly has been probably the biggest bit of learning from working with them.
Yeah. Who would you say is the most arrogant position group?
Oh, God, you really throw me down the bin there, aren't you? I'd I don't know. I mean, it's the classic wide receivers are usually the ones that they've got that little swagger, haven't they?
Yeah.
But not naming any names at all. But yeah, they may have done really well this year. But I don't know. I'm not going to mention names. Yeah, yeah. I'd say yeah. You'd say the wide receivers are probably the ones that they know they're the ones that are they want to be the ones that score all the points. So they're the ones that have that little swagger, don't they? So yeah, it's interesting working with them.
Yeah. Sam Penfold is a strange character.
I said I wasn't going to say his name.
You didn't.
Uh,
You. Um, anyway, I want to go back to where it all kind of starts with regards to your own athletic journey. Like when you got into competing, sprinting, and doing athletics, what's your earliest memory of that? What was that like from the start? Like I know you said your mum competed and she trained to a very high level, performed at a high level as well. I'm assuming that is like the leading influence. And then what was your experience of starting?
well, the funny thing was with that. So I initially went down with because I knew a few mates were going down to Warrington, so that's where I'm originally from. We're going down to the track at Vicky Park, and I was like, okay, well, I'll join in. I've loved sport. Like my family is sport, sport, sport. Um, and my mum hadn't actually mentioned much about how she used to compete and all this sort of thing. So I just went down with my mates, and I vividly remember there was like maybe a few weeks where I didn't go. And I remember asking my mum, like, when are we going down to the track again? Like, when can I go down? And she was like, oh, I didn't know you actually were into it. Like, because I was doing so many other things. I was doing cricket, a little bit of football, handball. I was doing obviously the like scouts and all this sort of thing. And she was like, oh, well, sure, I'll take you down if you want to go. And then literally since then, I went, you know, 2-3 times a week, and then it went up even more. And um, yeah, there's a great picture actually. I think the first ever um, club champs that I ever did at Warrington, and they usually do it in like September. And there's the old like Kodak printout pictures that you used to get back in the day
Yeah.
before TikTok and Instagram and all that rubbish. Um,
Mine was good.
and
Good back then. Those
I
were
know,
those
and you
were.
got like the yellow envelope of all the pictures you've got had printed out, and there's a picture of me running the 75 meters, and you could tell it was before I'd got like proper sports kit and stuff because I was wearing. Do you remember the Tasmanian Devil? You know the cartoon character. I was wearing a Taz t-shirt, sprinting out in front of everyone else, and there's just a vivid memory of that. That was the picture that my mum managed to take for one of my first races. Yeah.
I love that. That's mint. So, had you always been kind of like at the front of the pack when it came to running and sprinting?
I wouldn't say I was always the quickest. I was never the quickest. Like I was that kid who, when we were in classes, I was like had the rankings in my head of like which kid was the quickest, who's the next. Now I was always like third or fourth quickest sort of thing. There was always like two or three guys who had played football when they were younger and they were just naturally quite quick. So I was always like just the keen kid who will do everything, will try everything, every sport, and the speed sort of came as I got older, really, and trained more. I've never been sort of like naturally fast, but I've always been keen and put
Yeah.
the effort in. You know,
I was going to say, so you essentially did loads of different sports growing up as a kid. Do you think that's what stood you so well when it came to competing in multi-event disciplines?
absolutely, absolutely, yeah. Because I did swimming up into like national level. Like was Northern champion for a few years. Cricket again, I did that um, just below county level for a few years. tried different things like handball, bit of touch rugby, all that sort of thing. And the strength and cardio you get from swimming is really beneficial for combined events. Cricket as well, there's lots of benefits from strength wise you can get from that. So I think, yeah, it definitely played a part in just not being bored, I think. And therefore that transitioned into the athletics where I didn't want to be bored just doing one event. So I do them all because, it's just more fun that way,
Yeah.
in my view.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Although, I mean, considering that I just kick, I am one of those people that is very similar to that. I just love doing anything, playing any sport, playing any game. And somehow I've managed to get into this position where I'm just hyper focused on doing one completely unathletic thing.
Come on, don't do yourself down. You did two massive shackles in that Bristol game, absolutely charging them down, going bang, like that made the difference. Like, don't do yourself down like that, just kicking.
That's nothing to do with athleticism. That's just because I'm an angry man. Um, were there any standout moments for you as a kid growing up playing sport, competing? Was there anything that kind of like sticks in your head as like, this is where there's like fire in the belly? Absolutely loved that. Was able to just massively appreciate it to the full.
Yeah, I think probably when I won um, my first national title um, as an under 20. Um, and I look back at it as well and think I wasn't nervous throughout the whole. So it was an indoor heptathlon in the winter. Um, and I knew going into it, I might have a chance of getting a GB vest. Not sure about even winning it. Just get one of the top three or four spots to get a GB vest. Um, but the whole weekend, I remember I wasn't nervous at all. And it's very vivid that I was just like, I just had good music in my head that just kept me focused. And I remember like my hurdles was spot on. I won the hurdles and everything was going pretty good. And again, came to like the last race, the 1K. And I did that silly thing of I knew because obviously it's all on points in multi events. I knew how far ahead I needed to be of the guy in second in order to claim the title. I remember on the last lap just sort of looking around and going, he's absolutely miles off. And I was coming around the bend, the last bend, and literally shouting, yes, come on, yes, as I was like sprinting through to the line. And then, yeah, doing the whole run up to my mum, give her a hug, thanks for the support, all this sort of thing. Yeah, that sticks with me that'll stick with me for a long time.
Yeah.
Very success. Yeah.
I know that was that under 20s?
Yeah.
How
Yeah.
old were you at that point?
I would have been 18 or 19, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. 18 maybe. Yeah.
How did you like? I know you mentioned like running around that final bend, like you know you're there. Like, how was that moment? If you were to summarize that, like how it felt.
Uh, it's hard. I always find it hard to sort of summarize emotions like that. But I mean, just other than just delight. Like literally, I didn't just usually after the last event, you sort of slump off on on the floor, like absolutely exhausted. I was just absolutely buzzing. It's not like I'd ran slowly either. Like I'd ran my heart out, but I was just so buzzed with adrenaline, like so happy that I'd somehow managed to get the win overall. I literally just sprinted all the way up to the top tier to my mum. You know, like doing tennis, like they jump over all the seats or whatever. I did the cliche thing of going up to my mum and give her a big hug, and yeah, so that was the soppy thing to do. But she's supported me all through the years, so emotionally, I was like, yeah, we deserve this. Yeah.
Just a litter of bodies below, jumped on them with your spikes on, just a ton of people just like bleeding from the head as you'd climbed over them.
If that's how you want to think of it, yeah, let's say that.
Like, what was the journey up to that point? Like, how, like, at what point did you start to specialize in those multidiscipline events, and how intensive was that process in that training? Because, like, I think with athletics, like, I used to work with an Olympian as well, Emily Freeman. She was absolutely amazing, 200-meter runner, but I know for a fact it's a bloody hard life. Like it's a
Yeah.
really tough discipline, and then to be that good at multiple events, like just the hours of practice, like not just on the physical aspects, but also the skill elements to it as well. And then
Mm.
it's not well compensated, is it?
No,
Like
no, absolutely not.
athletes get
No.
a seriously raw deal. When you consider how much footballers get paid for sitting on a bench, like it's crazy in terms of the disparity between the two. But like what was that process and journey like leading up to that point?
So I'd I'd been, I think when I was in up to like under 15s, under 17s, I was still training at Warrington and doing like 3 times a week. And then before a combined events comp, on like the Thursday, I'd be like, shall I try some long jump? Shall I try some high jump? And just do the basics and that sort of thing. And then I did like a pole vault session at Sports City at the track we work at. Um, and whilst I was there, I saw there was a combined events group that had like a GB coach and that sort of thing. And whilst I was doing this pole vault session, the pole vault coach went, "Oh, well, you like doing other events, don't you? Shall I go introduce you to this coach?" I was like, "Yeah, of course, sure." Thinking, oh, well, I'm probably not going to get let in, but fine. And spoke to this GB coach, and he asked me a few questions. One of which I was a bit like, "Why you asked that?" And he went, "How many pull-ups can you do?" And I thought, I can do like maybe 15. Like, I thought, what? Why do you need to ask me that? Like, as an entry question, really? It's not really a parameter for getting in, surely. But anyway, and then sort of went from there. Like, he let me into the group, and then it sort of upped from doing like a casual, you know, 3 days a week at Warrington to
Sorry. Did you ever figure out why that was a question?
it's just the way he was. Like, I think he was trying to be a bit intimidating and sort of be like, "Well, it's tough stuff. You've got to be able to be strong and this sort of thing." And I thought, okay, well, I can do some pull-ups. Like, but back in the day, I was that weedy runt who had zero body fat and like spindly arms. So I think he was just questioning whether I had any strength whatsoever. But I got through the entry exam, I suppose. um, but yeah, so it upped then to doing 4 days a week, but instead of it being like 2 hours in Warrington on an evening, it was like, right, you turn up at like 4, half 4, straight after school, um, and you go straight into training for the next what 5 hours essentially. Like, there was days where it got to like half 9, and we'd been at the track since like half 4 doing stuff. You do that like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Saturday. You're there from like 9 a.m. till 1, 2 o'clock. So it upped big time, um, and I mean it paid off. Got to a good position. Um, Although, funnily enough, the week before that nationals, um, I'd actually in pole vault had a bit of an accident where I'd taken off a bit too close, and basically what happens then is you go straight up and you're just dangling, and you've got to decide if you can try and push yourself to land on the mat, or you do what I did, which was then come straight back where you came from and land straight on the track. And I basically like landed on my side and thought, "Oh God, have I broken my arm or something?" I hadn't, but I'd got massively shaken up, and that was actually the start of me having the yips for the next few years on pole vault, which I'm sure you know what the yips are, but it's yeah, it was it I thought, "Oh God, this is right the week before a national champs. Am I going to turn up to vault on the weekend and I'm not going to be able to take off or something?" And I was fine. Luckily, it was the years after that the yips started to really take hold for a bit.
So
But yeah, look, it's
was
fine.
that in the week leading up to that national championships?
It was like the Wednesday before. Yeah, that I'd landed back on the track. Yeah,
So just focusing on that, how did you deal with that leading up to the event and during the competition itself?
I think during the comp, I jumped off like a shorter run up. Still managed to clear like close to PB, so it was fine like points wise.
Yeah.
But I don't think I could take off like on my full run up or not or
Yeah.
whatnot. Because there was that sort of fear of, well, I'm onto a bigger length pole, stiffer pole. If I'm coming in at that speed, then what if I take off under again and I'm going to land back on the track, hurt myself, that sort of thing. But so, whereas if I was off a shorter run, I can still get good height. I still technically was quite good and I could get decent points still. Um, so yeah,
And
managed it.
you mentioned like it affected you more sort of like in the years following that. Like, what impact did it have?
So the the yips came in the form of I'd do all my drills pre vault, all fine, no problems. It's when I got on the runway and I'd set off, and it would be the last what 5 6 steps where you want to start moving the pole, get it above your head and ready to plant. That my brain would just go blank, and I'd just be like, whoa, stop, stop, stop. So I'd just run through because like my brain would have gone blank. I wouldn't know how to get my hands up and take off. Um, and it's hard to explain when it's happening. It's like I don't know. And my coach at the time, he was like, well, I can't really help you because it's not like you're too close or too far away or whatever. It's just literally you just need to get your hands up and plant. But when it's in your head, that little fear factor of, well, my head's gone blank, and also there's that fear of if I take off under again, I don't want to land on the track, I don't want to hurt myself. It's all that subconscious stuff. And I ended up going to um, I went to a guy at British Cycling actually, because obviously it's across the road from
Mm.
the track, and he talked me through all the chimp paradox, the Steve Peters
Yeah.
chimp paradox stuff. Um, so he taught me through all that stuff to try and help me out, which it, the philosophy worked well for me, but in practice I still struggled, and it sort of got a bit better where I could take off short run up and I could get the most out of the short run up and stuff. But there was no way I was going to really progress further because I still had that fear in my head of getting onto a bigger pole, bigger run up, more speed. There's that little fear that then creeps in. Um, the only way I got over it was when I started coaching. Obviously, I stopped vaulting and had like a year and a half away from it, 2 years away from it. And then literally it got to like a county champs in the summer, and I went, and the guy who's one of my assistant coaches, Ash, he's in his like 40s and he still competes. And he was doing it at like the Cheshire County Champs, and I went, you know what, I'll enter it. I was still in good shape. I'll enter it. And the yips had gone. Like I took off every jump, no matter what pole I was on, no matter what run up I was on. I just took off every jump. So it's amazing how your brain can just heal itself with a bit of time out. But obviously, at the time when I was at uni, thinking, right, I've got a GB vest, I want to progress now and push up to get a senior vest and this sort of thing. But my head got in the way. Um, but it gives me, a lot of experience to be able to, if I see my own athletes going into the same situations, I can coach them through it, hopefully.
I was going to say, if you did have an athlete having that same sort of experience, what would be your go-to bit of advice for them?
In pole vault, I'd be like, right, let's simplify it down again and take the grip down so it feels like you're back into a bit of a safe zone and go, right, just take off again. Nice and simple, just take off again. Don't shy away from the event and go, oh, I might hurt myself again. I best not. I'm going to have a break. I'm going to go on to the next event or whatever. Excuse me. Just try and adapt it for the athlete so that they go, right, I'm back in my comfort zone again. And it almost tricks them then to feel so comfortable that, okay, now we're just going to go back on the run again, back onto the bigger pole. And sure enough, bang, they take off again and it's back in action sort of thing. And it's whereas I didn't really have that when I was sort of struggling. The coach I was with, he didn't quite, I don't think he sort of fully knew how to sort of deal with it. So I was just constantly trying to get back on the run, just try and take off, and it just wouldn't work. there was no like, right, just come back down on the run, just try again with this low grip, back into safe zone or whatever. There was no scope for that. Whereas I've tried that now as a coach and it does work. And, there's hopefully more chance that I can get athletes through that process
Yeah.
and yeah, for the better.
Yeah, I was going to say, like mentally for you, what was that process like of going through that? Because I think it's if you play sport for long enough, you're going to come across some sort of mental and physical trauma at some point. And it's how do you deal with it? Like, what's your character like? Have you got enough to get you through that bad patch? So I know sometimes it's very difficult to explain to other people, and a lot of time coaches, I don't necessarily expect them to understand. Was it something you kind of had to? I know you spoke to a couple of people about it, but did you feel like you were more having to kind of keep it to yourself a little bit and then, try and think yourself through it? What was that like?
Exactly that, what you just said then, that when I was younger, I did very well at just compartmentalize, keep it insular, keep it to yourself, try and figure it out yourself, which was not the way to do it. Like I look back at it now and think I put myself through a lot of trauma and stress when if I'd have just tried to speak to people about it. And this is why part of my own coaching now, I put mental health like as one of my big, like into the psychology of sport as one of my big um, sort of focuses on my athletes of like we need to keep that mental health in check. Like if you're having issues with sport or school or whatever, go speak to someone. Like don't try and do it yourself, because I know so many people and myself included who tried to do that and it doesn't always work. Like it's better to have that support network around to try and work on it. And that's what I didn't do. Like I was speaking to my because I had a separate pole vault coach and a separate combined events coach. And I tried to speak to my combined events coach about it, and he didn't understand like
Yeah.
at all, like because he was of a different generation, and he just didn't understand that side of things. So it was hard to work through for a few years, but at least I can look back on it now, know what I did wrong, and as I say, see what I can do to change things for others in the future, hopefully.
Yeah. I think that there's a part of me that I think that kind of problem has to work two ways. Like we mentioned there about if you're an athlete and you're having a tough time and you're struggling, you need to be open about it. But I don't know why, but for whatever reason, that is a fucking tough move to make. Like, especially if it's to a coach that is responsible for
Mm-hmm.
selection, game time, playing, whatever it is. If you go, listen, I'm finding things tough at the minute. I'm struggling with X, Y, Z. I, for me personally, and I don't know whether I don't know whether this is necessarily true. I probably haven't thought about it enough, but I feel like it almost puts you in the stigma behind it is it puts you in a weakened position, which I
Mm-hmm.
don't think is necessarily true, but that's how it feels. It feels like you're having to take a backward step and almost like you're making a bit of an excuse. Now, from the coach's side of it, and for me as a coach, one of the things that, again, some actually, no, I'll go back to being an athlete. I've come out of situations where I've gone, and it's like my position, it's a lonely fucking position, right? It is, you are on your own. Like, very rarely is there a coach there for you. Very rarely is there not even a teammate. Like, they're all off busy doing other things. There's no one else doing that position. There's no one to necessarily speak to. And anyone that is playing that position is in direct competition. Who do you talk to? And it's like, do you know what? Sometimes when things go wrong, I'm looking around and I'm thinking, I wish someone would come and fucking say something to me. Like, I wish someone would come and have a word and just talk to me. And like, even just like, not necessarily put an arm around me, but be like, you all right? And I'd be like, nah, that kind of thing. So I think part of that responsibility is coaches need to be more proactive in sensing when their athletes aren't quite right. And I get it, that's hard to do as well. But I feel like you mentioned there about your coaching style, you would go and ask your athletes lots of questions through the session. I feel like if you're that kind of style of coaching, you'd be more better placed to have those conversations with your guys. Is that your similar thoughts as well?
Yeah, absolutely. It's part of the culture which I like to breed in my athletics groups, and it's something that I think I've maybe brought a little bit in with the Titans when they come to my part of the session, at least. Um, it's certainly something I try and promote in my athletics groups, definitely, because so I coach a lot of teenage girls, for example, and as a teenage girl, I imagine there's a lot. It's hard to find a safe space to be able to talk to coaches at times, and especially a male coach. So, like, a lot of the female athletes I get, especially teenage girls, they're going through a lot of stuff, like through puberty and everything. And I just make it pretty plain to them straight off, like, look, it's you're going through a tough time, because I've coached girls where, well, towards the start of my career, where look, I didn't know much about the female body in terms of like going through puberty and that sort of stuff. I didn't have sisters. I've got an older brother. Like my cousins are all male. Like I didn't, know about how they grew up. So I learned a lot of hard lessons about how to manage, teenage girls and when they're going through periods and that sort of thing. So I make it a big point of when I get a teenage girl in, be like, right, this is something we have to be able to talk about. Like, I'm happy to talk about if you're not feeling great because of you're on your period or something like that. We have to be able to talk about it because I don't want to put you through pain to get because you're not feeling great. And so for me, that's why I try and promote that safe culture, not just for male athletes, but for female athletes especially, so that they can talk to me. They can just go, you know what? They don't even have to say the words. They can just be like, yeah, my legs are a bit tired today. And you can go, right, that's fine. Or I can spot when they're maybe looking a bit sluggish on some things. And I go, right, just give them the little nod, like, is it that time? And they go, yeah, it is. And you can adapt things accordingly. Obviously, it's not the same in male, the male side of things, but it has helped me create that culture for male athletes as well to go, you know what, I've had a really crap day at school mentally, I've broken up with my girlfriend or something like that, and I've been able to be perceptive of when someone's been a bit down like that and go, okay, talk to me. If you want to talk to me about it, you can. You don't have to. You can if you want. I'm here as a neutral if you want to just let something out, because at the end of the day, it will affect your training if you don't let it out to someone. I'm always here if you need me. And it's feedback that a lot of my athletes have, and parents actually have said to me that, you know, because of how we try and build that culture of being honest with each other and talking about this stuff, it promotes, better efficiency and better results, because they feel like they can, and parents feel like they can come and talk to me about stuff rather than it be keep things separate or don't talk about that stuff. Like you say, you need a coach who is perceptive to that stuff and is also willing to, because it's all well and good a coach going, oh, talk to me if you want or whatever. But if you then go try and talk to them and they go, oh, well, yeah, that sucks. Okay, right. Anyway, next thing, like, that's not helpful for anyone, is it? Like,
Mm.
so you need a coach who is perceptive and willing to be open to talk about this stuff and try and help an athlete through it, be a calming ear. And I'd like to think the way that I coach, I do promote that, you know. And again, I'd like to think when it comes to Titan stuff and on game day, at the end of the day, I've done my job. On game day, I'm not going to be able, I can give like little cues for running, but at the end of the day, it's down to George and the team on the tactical side of things to be the main voices. But if I can be there on the sideline and be that person who, like you say, if you're feeling isolated or whatever after not doing well, that you can maybe turn to me, or I can go to you and spot how you're feeling and go, right, do you need anything? Like, what can I do to help? Like, even if it's just a case of you just rant at me,
That's
like,
not unusual, is it?
you know, like if even if it's a case you just need a 2 minute just shout at me or something. If that's what you need, I'm happy to be that person, on the sideline. And that's what I want to hopefully try and provide on a match day for the Titans at least. Because at the end of the day, George and the tactical team, they've got a lot to think about and a lot they're trying to take in on that side of things when the game's on, that maybe they can't take in someone going, my head's just not right, I'm just not feeling into it today or whatever. Whereas I can potentially be there as an option for that,
Mm.
and then maybe sort of feed it back to JD or George or Callie or someone on the side and be like, just so you're aware, you know, someone's not feeling brilliant right now, and sort of maybe do that side of things. Again, I could be wrong in thinking that could be a role I could play in it, but I'd like to think I'd try and be as help. That's my way of trying to be helpful on a game day, for example.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
It hits quite well that because I've been in that position myself as a coach when I was working with a football club. And I think very often as an S&C coach, as a sprint coach, strength coach, whatever the role is, like you are having that closer, more in-depth one-to-one time with the athlete. You're getting to know them a lot more, especially in rest periods between exercises. Like you're having more personal conversations. Like that becomes a big part of it, and you become very much kind of like that person that they can trust and actually speak to. And I think it's really a bit of an unmentioned and unspoken role that I think is 100% valuable and beneficial to athletes and everyone involved. And going a bit more on the mental health side of things, I think there seems to be a bit of a view as to like it has to be a softly approach all the time, and it's kind of always down the road of counseling and therapy and very nicey. And I don't know what your perspective is. I would like to get that. I think my view is very much like it is about you as an athlete being able to have a conversation with someone that's not yourself and just be 100% honest. And if you can
Mm-hmm.
do that, you're all good. You will be fine. I think the people that struggle the most and kind of bury it and don't face up to reality are the ones that tend to struggle more than anything. But it's having that direct honesty. And sometimes, I mean, you know what I'm like as a person, as a coach, I'm equally honest. I'll just be very direct and to the point with people as and when it's required. What's your perspective and take on it?
I think that's completely right. You have to have that, and again, that goes back to the culture that I spoke about, like creating that culture where you can be honest with each other and talk freely about stuff rather than go insular about stuff. Um, but I think you're right. It's trying to also find that balance of like if I feel like at times when I've been coaching, I have been too nice. Like even on Titan sessions, I've been too sort of like forgiving and let people off certain things. So it's trying to find that balance as well of being like sort of saying to someone, "Look, you're being a dick. Like you you need to knuckle down and focus now." I've had that. I actually had that chat with. So I run a combined events group of all teenage lads, and they're sort of like either top high school or college age. And we've promoted a good culture in that group for a while, but I felt like we'd tipped the balance of the scales of like professionalism and having fun. Like they all want to excel and do well and be professional, but there was a bit too much, joking about not actually knuckling down on sessions and things like that, that it'd gone on for a bit too long. And I had to have that sort of frank conversation with them of, look, you all want to do well. You want to be pros. That's great. And yes, we are here to also have fun. However, at this point in time, you guys are messing about too much. We're not getting the full efficiency out of sessions. And I had to be that blunt, honest. When they don't see that from me very often, like I don't like being that sort of like really strict, like teacher-esque, like that sort of like telling off people, that sort of thing. So when they saw that, they were like, you know what, you're right, and we're sorry about that, and we'll be better next time. We're going to knuckle down. And sure enough, the next few sessions, we're back in business. We still had fun, but they were like, yeah, we need to knuckle down on certain things. And again, that comes from that honesty and that relationship between me and the athletes of being able to go, you know what, this we need to be frank and talk about these things, and that it can't all just be jolly and happy and stuff. Um, so again, I'd like to think that's something we can sort of bring into. I know we've had like chats as a team and stuff like that about, right, you want to do things well, you've got to knuckle down. You can still have fun, but you've got to be honest with each other that if you want to achieve things, you've got to be serious on some bits. And yeah, you've got to have that culture and that relationship with athletes to be able to do that. But as I say, it's not very often that I put my serious face on
Yeah.
and be like, right, this is not a funny subject now. We need to talk. We need to be serious about this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that gives you a bit more impact as well, though. When you're not like that, it's like when you see a coach who just shouts all the time. They shout, 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 and they're always at level five.
Mm-hmm.
And I sit there thinking, what are you going to do when you actually need to shout? Like you've got nowhere left to go. You have got no more additional settings. You've got nothing. So I think it gives you that bit more impact by being, like I said, more adaptable with your coaching style. I feel like you've got to have different things that you can dip into, don't you?
Wear different hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Going back to kind of like your athletic career and then your transition into coaching, you mentioned before that did you make the switch from competing into coaching because of an injury?
Um,
Or was that just a part of it? Like what was that situation like?
it was a part of it. I'd come to the realization that I knew I wasn't going to make it to the pro level. I knew I wasn't going to. I could tell physically I was never going to be the frame or the speed um, to get to that level. I was just trying. I was just realistic. Like I'd seen people who had excelled around me and saw like the path they were on, and I thought, as I could try and go serious for the next year or so, but I just think realistically, I don't think I'm going to get there, and which is, a bit of a. I think my parents probably took it harder than I did, like as a heartbreaking thing. Because obviously, when I was a kid, I was like, I want to get to a Worlds, I want to get to an Olympics, I want to get to this. And obviously, at that stage, I was like, well, you know what? I'm probably, and I was what, 22, 23. So there was still years left that I could work hard and get to my prime. But I fell in love with. I got the same buzz out of coaching people as I did when I got a personal best. Like coaching other people to personal bests and enjoying athletics and loving what they do. I got the same buzz as when I was competing. And that's when I had that sort of flick of, okay, so I maybe won't go as an athlete. But if I can be a coach and coach someone else to that level, I'll still get just as much fulfillment and not go through all the injuries and and heartbreak and potential yips and this sort of thing, um, as I would do as an athlete. So it was a bit of a realization for me, yeah. And I think, as I say, my parents probably took it harder because they were like, well, you know, we thought you would be the way you've committed to the sport and stuff. You might go all the way or whatnot, but as always, they're very supportive and they understood where I was coming from. Yeah,
You had a very honest conversation with yourself, didn't you?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
What was it like mentally dealing with that and coming to that realization and kind of moving past it?
I think I think it was almost relieving in a way because I felt like for after the years I had the yips and it was affecting my performances. Getting in, I had loads of hammy injuries and was never fixed right. Like the hard toil it takes mentally. to try and keep getting back up and compete and do this stuff, it was all I had just a realization that, you know what, I wasn't actually as happy as I thought I was, like doing the sport. I loved it for many years, but getting injured, having the mental difficulties, it was hard. And I had that talk with my mum. Actually, we had a very honest talk with each other. Like, you know what, I'm not happy. I'm not happy doing it, but I love coaching. I love what I do with people and working with people. Um, and it was quite interesting because I'd like to think I'm quite an introverted person, like hence why I internalized a lot of stuff. But like I had a lot of social anxiety through high school and through college and through uni as well, dealing with social issues and like how to vocalize and come out of my shell and whatnot. I had a lot of issues with that. But when I'm coaching, I can talk to people easy. Like if I've got my shorts, I've got my coaching top on, if I'm on an athletics track, on a sports field, if I'm trying to coach people, I can talk to people. It's so strange, like to me still. Like I've come out of my shell a lot more now. Like the way that you guys see me is very different to how I was.
I was just
Yeah.
going to say, like, I feel like I am exactly the same as that. Like, if I'm on
Mm-hmm.
a social situation, which if you put me in a dinner, in a party or a wedding or something like that, I'm quite happy just sat in a corner, doing nothing, saying nothing to it. Like, I am more comfortable doing that than I am like going around me. Like, I am not a social butterfly at all. But when it comes, like, for someone I see myself as being relatively introverted as well, but for somehow I managed to coach loads of people. For some reason, I record a podcast and put stuff on social media, like weird, just different environments.
Yeah, and that was the sort of, yeah, that was the also that turning point of, I can potentially, improve myself, like improve like my sort of introvertedness or whatever, like become maybe that bit more extroverted, be able to show who I actually am via coaching. Because I can speak to people, I can learn more because I can actually feel more comfortable in that arena compared to, other parts of life potentially. So, yeah, that was all part and parcel of that choice to be like, no, I think coaching's the way for me, like not competing much anymore. I still did bits and bobs, but it was nowhere near as intense. It was on my terms, and yeah, it was much better.
And what's your coaching journey been like from start to where you are now?
So literally, as soon as I finished uni, I got in touch with people who I used to know from the track, and was like, right, I want to. I ended up working with my old pole vault coach for a bit, but we had a bit of a disagreement that fell apart a bit, and then but whilst I was working with him for those like few months, I'd made good connections with other groups at the track, and there was a guy called Ian who he had literally a group of like three multi-eventers, and I'd gotten talking to him like whilst I was coaching the other group, left that group, and then sort of just messaged him saying, look, I haven't got my full coaching qualifications yet. I'm still a level one, which means I have to be with someone else. But I love, I've got a multi-event background. I'd love to work with you and the group. Like, I'm not here to take over the group or anything. Like, I just want a group to work with and help out so I can start my coaching journey essentially. And I'd done and I was collared to do a bit of throws coaching back at Warrington. So I sort of did my bit with my old club as well. Um, and yeah, he said, "Yep, yeah, cool, come along." And literally it ended up being that he gave me the lead on a lot of stuff until I got my level two, and that means that you can coach on your own. And he was like, "Yep," yeah. And we just built a group, literally because of my experience and working with him as well. We built a from a group of three athletes who were sort of like county level or just below. We've now built a group, and Ian sadly sort of moved on to a different venture now. But we've built a group now where, we've got international athletes, and it's sort of built from there of me getting experience from coaching kids from all grassroots upwards. Like I never wanted to be one of those athletes who sort of went from like, oh, I've got a GB vest, so therefore I should just go straight to coaching elite sport or whatever.
Mm.
I wanted to work from the grassroots upwards because that's, to me, that's where you get most learning from. You learn from people who have come from all different walks of life, all different challenges, kids who've got so many different backgrounds and different learning difficulties or physical difficulties. You learn so much from that grassroots. And I think that's what's those like few years of doing that really put me in good stead for getting to the level I am now, where a new person might come in and I'm able to evaluate or like talk to them and see where they've come from and be able to go, right, I think this might be the method of coaching that might be the best to help you. Um, so much better than if I just came straight into trying to coach elite. Yeah, because I see it so often in athletics in particular. Athletes who've come straight from a GB background suddenly get given like a group of GB athletes, and I'm like, okay, we'll see how this goes. But personally, like, you need to have done the groundwork. Surely you can't just go straight into it. So yeah, I did years of doing that grassroots work before I got my first international athlete or anything like that. Yeah.
So how does that process work? Is it a case of do you go out and do you manage to do people come to you to work with you specifically, or do kind of like England Athletics kind of push the athletes in your direction and be like, look, you need to go and work with him?
The former. I'm lucky now that I've built up an athlete base and an experience and a reputation now that I don't need to necessarily go out recruiting people. It's more people will see how well my athletes are doing, and then I'll get messages in Instagram or on Facebook or on email or whatever saying, I've seen, because every athlete has got their own. There's a website called Power of 10, and it's basically a rankings system in the UK for athletics, and every athlete who competes in the UK has their own profile, and it has like who their coach is and what performances they've done. So obviously, if my name's next to quite a few athletes who are doing well and they get seen, then that's when people start, coming to me and asking, and I get referred athletes by, other athletes and coaches in like my local network as well. They'll sort of see how well I'm doing and go, oh well, we've got this young kid who looks like they're keen enough and they look quite good. Can we recommend them to you for just hurdling or just throws or combined events and stuff? And
Yeah.
it goes that way, really. Yeah.
And how does it work over with the programming aspects? Like, how much control do you have over what they do in all aspects of their training in terms of coming down to the track to do sessions with you to what they do in the sessions away from you? Like, how much oversight do you get of the entire process, or is it very specific things that they come in for?
It's different depending on which group you're coming in for. Like, if it's an individual event group, um, like I've got a couple of hurdles groups, for example. A lot of them will just come to me specifically for the hurdle technical work and specific knowledge on hurdles, but they'll have their own running group, like sprints group or whatever, where they'll do that side of things, or they'll have their own S&C coach, or I'll recommend someone that they go to supplement it. Whereas my combined events group, that's all we manage that. Like I'll manage their running, all the technical work. I've got a guy in who does plyometrics and gym work. I'll send them to, and he's good at communicating and going through the whole process of keeping everything aligned with that as well. So it depends which group, really. It depends which group you come to, um, whether I control absolutely everything
Yeah.
or I just do my technical expertise, really. Yeah.
Oh, sweet. And then what do you foresee as kind of like the future coaching pathway for yourself with regards to athletics?
Well, so obviously, conveniently, this weekend, I'm making my England debut as a coach and lead coach at an international this weekend in Belfast, which will be exciting / nerve wracking. But yeah, so because I've done like bits of coaching on like excellence camps and stuff like that for England, but not actually been part of the like coaching network on an event for England. So that's exciting. That's like my first step, and hopefully, if that goes well, there'll be more in the winter where they'll ask me to go as part of the England team and that sort of stuff as part of coaching. But at the end of the day, my goal is that I get an athlete or group of athletes up to a level where I'm an England coach at a Commonwealths, or I'm part of the GB coaching setup at a Worlds or an Olympics and that sort of thing. That's for me, that would be the main goal. But to get there, I have all these little goals of I just want athletes to enjoy and like excel themselves. Really, I'm not putting like a time frame on that. Right before I'm 40, I need to have been to a Worlds with an athlete or anything like that. It's just even if I just get to one, if I just get to one major games as a coach with an athlete, that to me that's success. That's I've achieved what I wanted to. And even if I then don't get another one, that's fine. As long as I'm happy with who I'm coaching, what I'm doing. Athletes are all enjoying what they're doing and excelling. That's success to me.
Yeah, very much focus on the process rather than because you can't control the outcome of everything that happens or what result in
As
competition.
much as we'd like to.
I know.
Yeah.
Doesn't happen.
No.
Anyway,
So yeah.
well, good luck with that. I hope it goes well. I hope it goes well this weekend. Although by the time this podcast goes out, this weekend will have come and gone. So the world will
Yeah.
already. Um,
Yep.
Going back to American football now,
Mm-hmm.
had you had any exposure to the game before you came to Manchester Titans?
Funnily enough, I'd actually done one touch American football session with a mate of mine back in Warrington. I can't actually remember the team of who it was, but it was a point after uni where I was making the decision whether to go back to cricket, or my mate coached this touch for American football team, and he was like, "Well, you're quick and you can throw." Because I used to throw javelin like 50 odd meters, so it was like, you'd be useful with the ball potentially and this sort of thing. So I was like, okay, I'll come down for one session, see how it was. I didn't like it because it was touch, and I kept getting penalised for getting too close to a player without actually pulling the tag off them. I'd end up actually tackling them. So that was like the only sort of actual American football I'd done, and then I just went straight to cricket because I was like, I like cricket, it's fine. But I've always sort of liked American football. Like my dad's been a Raiders fan since the '90s for our sins, so obviously I'm a Raiders fan for my sins, um, which is not great. But anyway, so I've always sort of watched the Super Bowl,
To be fair,
followed American. Go
my,
on,
my dad, my dad's a Raiders fan as well, so
yeah.
he knows how you feel.
Yeah, it's not been a good 10 years anyway. Um, yeah, so I've sort of followed American football um, with the Raiders and that sort of thing. Not been like mega devoted to it, but I've always sort of found it interesting. A couple of my friends, we all sort of used to watch the Super Bowl together, and we like it and follow it a little bit. So yeah, so when it came to, you know, the last couple of years wanting to diversify my coaching and go into other sports, um, yeah, I didn't even fully realize like how big American football was in the like I'd seen when I was because I went to Brunel Uni, and I think they were pretty good on the American football side of things. Obviously you'll know more than that than me because obviously you played at uni and whatnot. Um, but it looked like we had like maybe one or two GB players at Brunel, so that's like I had a bit of knowledge of it from that. But other than that, I was like, I don't know how big American football is in the UK, really. Um, Although I know, do you know Ryan Allen?
Hmm.
I went to college with him, and obviously I'd seen that he was coaching American football as well. So that's sort of where I'd seen things really. And turns out he's like best mates with Stu and whatnot. Yeah.
What would you say? Were there any standout moments? over the course of that first season?
I think for me personally, that when I knew that I was definitely invested was going to that my first home game this season and being on the sideline, seeing how trying to take in everything and how it works, and obviously getting the win was mega. Considering we'd obviously lost that first game, because when we lost that first game, I was a bit like, oh crap, like have I not done a good enough job here? Like what have I done? And then we obviously won that first home game, and literally, I think I turned to Maddie at the time and literally turned to her and went, okay, I'm in. Like I'm in this now. I want to get as involved in this as much as possible. Like this is for me. I love this. It's so good. Yeah.
I like that. Yeah, I'm sorry about that first game.
Yeah.
Moving on.
But it's fine. We still won the league. It's fine.
Yeah. Um, from your perspective, what observations did you notice in terms of changes through the team and I think the way that the team developed as the season went on? What was that like from your perspective? How did you view that?
Um, I think what the main thing I've noticed this season is, I mean, obviously coming from someone who I had no idea who was a rookie, who was a new person in the team or whatever, but I could sense that this is a very young team.
Mm.
Um, Obviously, you could tell who were some of like the stalwarts in the team, like yourself, for example, and Scott, and maybe a couple of others. Um, but the big thing I noticed this year is the maturity of the team. Like you kind of forget that the majority of this team are like uni age or just come out of uni, and they're still super young. And it's sort of, I think that first game, it sort of showed really, didn't it? Like there was a lot of them thinking, oh well, I'm playing senior ball now. Like I'm come out here and like I'm going to show because I'm playing the Titans, and then it didn't work. Like it was that big wake up call. And I think throughout the season, I've noticed that each home game that I'd gone to, the maturity level sort of picked up a bit. Like I saw it a bit more at training that you know they they want this, and they're willing to pick it up a bit more and go for it. And that's where I think obviously when we lost to Bristol, how everyone reacted to it. I was actually so proud of how everyone reacted to it. Like, yes, we lost, but I think we could admit we lost to a good team.
Mm.
And with the age of the team we have, how everyone responded, like it wasn't like people were like kicking bottles about or like destroying the stadium or anything like that. It was like we just faced a good team. We're not quite fully there yet. We've got a lot of new people. We're a young team. Like how everyone was mature in reacting to the loss was really yeah, really proud to see how they reacted. And I think George was a really good spearhead of that as well, and yourself as well. Like the team leaders were really good at, showing that actually we've done well here. We've actually done really well because due to how experienced this team was. So it was good to see, like through the months, like the maturity maybe starting to get a bit better, and hopefully it's a good platform for this winter where we can hopefully the both of us can on the sort of physical side of things really pick up a bit more on them and set a good platform for next year.
Yeah, I hope so as well. I think, again, I think part of that maturity side of things, I think a lot of people grew up very, very quickly and certainly stepped into their role, probably more so than I was expecting as well in some cases. Like, I would just highlight Charlie as the quarterback.
I was about to say,
I
yeah.
mean, like he was always going to be a good quarterback. He's always had loads of ability, loads of talent. Even watching him in training with Sam Bloomfield over the last couple of years, and then obviously game one comes around. I think we had a bit of a probably a bit of a shaky preseason. We'd not had any game time. We just had competition between ourselves, and that never helps, especially when you're playing up against a team like Tamworth, Coventry. when it's their third game, so they've already got 2 games under their belt, match speed, plenty of reps, match fitness, like being able to work at those speeds again and again and again. I would just say like Charlie has massively stepped to the forefront and delivered not just in terms of quality, leadership, calmness, and just being able to execute under pressure. I think that takes a massive weight off everyone. So I would say he's probably the epitome of someone who massively stepped up. And I know, as a team, I think you were there a couple of times for these, but we had a few honest chats between us, didn't we?
Yep. Yep.
Um, yeah, I mean, how would you kind of like, I think culture in American football is certainly the reputation that the Titans have had over the last few years has been one that, from the outside anyway, people have absolutely hated.
Which
And
I found really funny, by the way, because I I've I've come into this culture being like, oh well, everyone seems quite nice and they've allowed me to come in and this sort of thing. And then when I hear, like you say, those things of everyone hates us, I'm like, what? Like,
yeah,
what? Where's this come from?
the culture has massively changed. I think over the last year, certainly, the culture has definitely changed in that side of things. People won't forgive it though. People won't roll back the clock and be like, "Oh, the Titans are all right." That ain't gonna happen. We know that. But I know for a fact a lot of the criticism leveled at the team for the team and for us being a bunch of absolute so and so's has certainly come from the direction of people who would more than love to have been a part of that. And certainly in teams that I've played in, those people have fulfilled that role of being that guy,
Mm-hmm.
which I think has been quite funny. So, just in terms of how did you find the culture coming in as a coach this year? Like, how would you summarize it?
I think it's definitely grown and improved as we've gone along this season. Obviously, it's a very different culture to what I've experienced in athletics. Like I've never worked in an actual like team before. Like obviously when I was younger I did like cricket team, and as an adult I've been part of like a cricket team, but cricket's obviously very different to American football. Like the culture of this team is so different to anything I've experienced before. Um Again, sort of leading back to what I'd said earlier about trying to adapt to all the different personalities and different parts of a team. I've just tried to embrace it as much as possible, because when it comes to a game day, you see it all start to come together. Like the fact, like the whole like juice and stuff like that. That Ola, obviously promotes a lot and that sort of thing.
Listen,
Um, he's not dead. He's just retired. That's
it's
but
the
like,
same. It's the same thing. It's the same.
is it? But yeah, that sort of like seeing that energy all come together on the sideline, shouting defense, and like it's only on that last game that we had that I fully like started to like come out my shell and start to actually try and promote that on the sideline as well. Like it took me a few games before I was able to like fully embrace that sort of culture, but it's it's the community at the end of the day. Like, and that's, I love that side of things. Like that's something I love about athletics as well, that if you've got a good community around you, good things will happen. And sure enough, with the Titans, that with that, trying to promote that sort of community of working with each other, yeah, you can still take the mick out of each other every now and then, but at the end of the day, you all have the same goal of wanting to get a championship, get a ring, that sort of thing. And that's where the community all comes in, of working together, not like, little catty, like spiting each other, spiting different types of the like different parts of the team. Like it's not as much as O line, D line. When they come over to me, they sort of badger each other a little bit. It's nothing malicious. It's more right. Come on, let's work hard. Let's
Mm,
work hard together, sort of thing. And that, I love that. Absolutely love that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned a little bit or alluded to it in terms of the physical development and the progression through the off season over the next few months. What do you envision? that has been, and how do you foresee your role developing and the way that the team develops over the next few months to the next season and beyond that? What's your longer term vision if you do indeed stay within American football?
Um, to be honest, I'd love to stay in the sport for a while now. Like that, as I said, like I'm absolutely hooked with where this game can go, and sort of my vision over the winter for the like short term is like when I was speaking to some of the guys, or even just seeing some of the guys at the Bristol game and seeing how like, oh, they're like, oh, I've not done enough cardio, and not done this or this, and I thought, you know what, I joined at the turn of the year when everyone's starting to come out of hibernation and starting to come into technical work and starting to get back as a team. We missed out on that October to December or January part of, for me as an athletics coach, where you do hard graft, like you do super hard sessions, like to try and get you physically in that good shape, not just for indoor comps, but for the outdoor season. So when I finished that game against Bristol, I was like, you know what? I think there's just so much scope for improvement physically in this team because there's so many like young guns in there who like there's so much scope to work on. Even people who are maybe like over 30, like one of the people I'll highlight this, like Cade, for example, like who's come down to some of my track sessions, who gives absolutely everything. And I still look at him and he sort of questions it every now and then at a session, like, oh, I'm so slow, this sort of thing. I'm like, nah, you've still got so much potential here, like to improve physically and speed wise, that if we put that hard graft in over the next like 3-4 months into January, oh, it could be so dangerous, like so good, like how we could set that platform of speed, strength to then lead to really good football. Hopefully, come into the new year. That's my hope, that I can hopefully provide for George and all the other coaches. Hopefully, provide a team which they can look at their plays and go, actually, maybe we can come up with something else. I don't know, which actually adheres to our new strengths of speed, agility, overall strength that you can provide them as well. That, yeah, we're going to surprise a few people, I think, hopefully, if I'm not giving away too much.
I'm excited. I'm excited. I want to get in tonight. I want a session. I want a session right now.
A couple more hours, we'll be there.
Yeah, yeah. Um, in terms of, I just want to touch before we go into some general training advice for people. I just want to ask you, in terms of multi-sport athletes or athletes from other sports transitioning across to American football, how hard do you think that is?
I can't really speak from experience because obviously I've not necessarily done that transition. The only transition I've done is, like from an athlete into cricket, where I suppose it is very useful in cricket to have that all round strength and different attributes. For American football, I'd like to think it's possible. Like, obviously, you can recruit people from rugby league, rugby union, who have a lot of similar attributes that you can take into different parts of American football. I'd also like to think that there's some athletes, sprinters who you could probably make some sort of transition. But I don't, unless you've grown up with that American football, I feel like you never will fully get to like that full, like 100% transferred into like a proper American footballer. I
Yeah,
just think, I just think there's so many tactical things that come along with American football and that mentality that comes with it, those tactics, that if you've been in it since you were a teenager, there's a chance you're going to go on and do pretty well. If you're like sort of mid 20s coming across to it, there's no reason why you can't, make the changes. But I just think there's always going to be, you might just be that tiny bit step back tactically and sort of that mentally thinking that step ahead of the next phase. Um, like you look at Jonesy, for example, he's coming from like a rugby background. I think he could be like super, like he's had his, I think it's his first season this year.
Yeah.
He's probably learned so much, like because it's actually as much as there's a similar shaped ball and similar sort of runs, it's actually so different. I imagine he's learned so much this year. Hopefully, next year he gets some rep time. He's going to be even better. But I think he'll always be a little bit behind people who have maybe done it in high school, done it in college, done it at uni. No reason to say he can't, you know, show me up and he goes on and does absolutely brilliantly, which I hope he does. But I just think there's always going to be that little bit of like 10% where you're not going to be quite as good as people who've done it for a bit longer, maybe.
Yeah, I was going to say because like at the top level, I know there's been a few people from athletics and certainly with a sprinting background, they've tried to make that jump across because they've got the physical capabilities, but not necessarily got the tactical stuff. And then you've got the likes of Reece Summit, for example, who was on the international player pathway, who he's played sort of like those team sports, world class rugby player, super fast but still hasn't quite cut through. Like, what do you think it would take for someone to be able to make that jump at the top level? Like, do you think it is possible for, i.e., a world-class sprinter or, the world's fastest rugby player to be able to go, do you know what? I can play in the NFL and actually be able to do it, get signed to a roster and play a big part in that team? Easy question.
Oh,
Easy.
is it? I think there is a small percentage of chance that is possible. But it is a small percentage chance. I feel um, again because if your head since you were a teenager when it's so malleable and like a sponge hasn't been in the sort of in-depth tactical minutia of offensive plays, defensive plays, surely it's quite hard when you then as I say like a mid 20-year-old to go and go, yeah, I can just pick all that tactical stuff up straight away, right? And as I say, there probably is a sprinter or another athlete out there who has that capability of their brain is somehow still a sponge and they're just those, those sort of people who they just pick stuff up. They can just do anything. There probably is that person out there. I just think they're not very frequent. Like I think,
Yeah.
yes, there is a chance, but it's a hard graft, I imagine.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's the thing because the NFL is just take it that well, it's the freaks of the freaks of the freaks of the freaks that even contemplate giving it a shot that are the ones playing at that. Like I always find it quite amusing. You probably see the same in athletics as well when you get critiques on the sideline going, "He's crap, he's terrible." It's like, hold on, you have absolutely no idea how good they actually are. Like
Mm-hmm.
it will boggle your mind. It's just the fact that on this day they've been absolutely outdone by someone who is just a cut above. Like it's like the Messi Ronaldo debate. Like you have
Mm.
a disagreement over that. It's like, oh, Ronaldo shit. It's like, well, he's not though, is he?
He's not. He's clearly made a very good career as a footballer. It's a very successful career. Yeah. It's yeah.
Yeah, the next thing I did want to get into was kind of actual individual training, but I want to start with more of an overview in terms of the cultural aspect of track and field because I think it's something that massively separates the UK school and sports system to what happens in the US. What's your take on it?
It is, yeah, the two countries are very different. Very different. Like for example, I've got a few kids at the moment who are sort of they're getting scouted by American scouts and stuff. Um, and I always have to sort of caveat it with like it's nice that they're sort of wanting to scout you and stuff, and but I don't think it's necessarily the best option. So there's always this culture of going over to America is the best way to do things because they get so many great athletes out there. Their college system is so much well, could you say better? It's so much more well funded and more prioritized. Sport is so much more prioritized in America than it is over in the UK. So obviously that pipe dream of wanting to go over there is such a big thing. But the thing I found in athletics is that actually, from a combined event front, combined eventers who've gone over there to be at American uni, you see them, and there's a guy called Alex Pope. He's done some studies about it actually. Of yes, when they go to American uni, those first 2 years, yep, there's a nice steep improvement rate, but then you look at their longevity and it just tapers down, 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 and they get to late 20s and suddenly they're either not in the sport anymore or they're actually behind the people who didn't go to America, and the people who've not gone to America have had just a bit more of a gradual increase through their sort of performances um, and their development. So it's sort of a tricky thing to try and work with and try and prove to athletes in the UK that the culture we've and the skill level we promoted over here can actually take you all the way to the top. You don't have to go over to America and see that as being, well, if I go to America, that's it. I'm going to make it. Guaranteed I'm going to make it, because you might not. And then you've been in America, got broken, because a lot of athletes do that. They go over to America and their mentality on training is so different to how we try and coach athletes in terms of like the intensity, that a lot of our athletes go over and they get broken and then they either drop out or they just don't improve anymore. And it's hard to try and explain that to a young athlete who, is at near the start of their journey.
Yeah, just with the way that you say that there, is it sort of a case of like if, the way that the Americans treat their athletes, is it kind of like, let's get you to your ceiling as quickly as possible, whereas kind of like the approach that you've highlighted we have over here might be a bit more slow burner. Let's build a bigger base, allow that ceiling to elevate even further, and then more gradually take you up there so you've got a bit more longevity. Because I think, like you mentioned about athletes peaking at a really young age and then falling off, and whether or not they can ever get back there is a pretty tricky question, but it's also a massive mental hurdle versus someone who's been a bit more patient. Like I always summarize it with strength training, you need to slow cook it. Like you can't chuck it in a pan and fry it and cook it as quickly as possible because you're going to get burned.
Mm-hmm.
You take your time with it. Do you think that's probably, would you say that is a better approach to take? Is just be more patient, slow cook it, take your time. Don't worry about people who are exceeding and excelling past you now at the age of 18, 19, 20, 22, 24 even. And, essentially stay in the game till you're 26, 27 and keep pushing on from there.
That's exactly what I say to new athletes who come to me, because they're so thinking about. So there's a thing called English schools athletics where they've got like an individual champs and a multi-event champs, and people put so much focus on, oh well, I want to win English schools, I want to win English schools and this sort of thing, when they're like in high school, in college, and I'm like, there's an interesting fact I always give to people. Jess Ennis Hill, do you know the highest she ever finished at an English schools championship? Eighth. And look at where she went to.
Yeah.
So why put so much
Can I
focus on winning English schools?
just ask you a question? Do you know the name of who finished first in that event?
No, exactly.
There we go. There we go.
Exactly. No one remembers English schools winners.
Yeah.
People remember the ones who are in their prime in 25 to 28, making Olympics, making Commonwealths, making Europeans, worlds, and getting medals at it. They don't look back and go, oh, but remember they won English schools in 2005. So like no one remembers that. So trying to convince young athletes that yeah, like you say, your peak, especially for combined eventers, we find that their peak is between like 26 to 29. That's where their peak performances actually come in. So they're coming to us at like 14, 15 and going, I want to get an England vest now. And I'm like, that's not the mentality. It's nice. If you get it, lovely. But that is not the be all and end all of your career. Like, you have to think the next 10, 12 years of work. That's what you want to be working through, not, well, I've got to make sure I win English schools because that'll be good. Well, might feel good at the time, but okay, let's see where you are in the next 5, 10 years. Are you still going to be in athletics? Are you going to be representing GB as a senior? Potentially not.
Mm.
So you've got to fight for all the freaks that you've got to compete against in all these puberty years as an under 15, under 17, under 20 even. Wait for things, do the hard work, like you say, build that platform, work long term, get through those tough years and go, right, as a senior, that's where I want to be at the top. Under 23s, that's where I want to get closer to the top, not as a 15-year-old winning an English schools title and then you don't see him a couple of years later. You
Mm.
see it so often in athletics, so often.
You just sparked something in me there. In terms of early developers, what do you do with them in athletics? Because like we see it all the time in football and in team sports where you get someone who goes through puberty a little bit quicker than everyone else. They become a lot bigger, a lot stronger, a lot faster, and they can just run through people. One of the ways around that is that you push them up an age group, or you push them up two age groups, or you put them on a level where they're competing with someone who has a similar biological age. What can you do with them in athletics? What's the focal point with someone who is a bit of an early developer in terms of keeping them grounded? Like, right, let's focus on this, this, and this. Like, what does their process look like?
So I've not actually had many of them. I've had one lad who, when he first came to me, he actually said it to me yesterday. He was like, "I was just a little ball when I first came to you. Like, it was this little chappy, little yappy, like little bit podgy kid." But then, literally in COVID, he suddenly like he just went through puberty. Like he suddenly grew to like 6'3", trimmed down, got really strong. So and suddenly then started getting injuries and all this sort of thing. So that's for me the main thing is trying to keep them one grounded that when they are performing well, try and get them grounded to be like, this is great right now, but don't let it sort of, you know, don't let that be your identity that, yeah, you're the kid who's like absolutely brilliant and then you don't care what you're doing. Make sure you're doing all the groundwork, like doing your stretching, doing your strength and conditioning, doing that. Don't try and hit the weight super early, that sort of thing. Like try and go through that puberty phase going, right, keep yourself grounded, do the stretching, do all the right stuff, try and keep yourself injury free during your growing and that sort of stuff. And if we then, you know, get you through college and into, because a lot of the time they go to uni and they go elsewhere, so then the management of that is a bit tricky.
Mm.
But yeah, it's mainly just try and keep them grounded and be like, great, we're doing well, but the goal is still long term. And I've seen it loads of times where other coaches and athletes, a lot of the time it's when an athlete actually hasn't got a coach with them. It's more their parents are doing the work. They're doing the coaching. That they're the ones that you see them burn brightly when they're younger because the parents are like, they're amazing. They're so far ahead of everyone. They're winning everything. This is great. But they don't necessarily have the knowledge of how to then try and keep them in the sport when everyone else catches up.
Mm.
When they hit like college or uni, and suddenly that advantage of being physically better is no longer a thing. Like everyone else is physically catching them up. So trying to keep them grounded and be like, yeah, you enjoy it for a bit now, but just realize it's not always going to be like this. Like you've got to still put the hard yards in for the future when people catch up and that sort of thing. Which again is hard for, you know, a freakish teenage boy who's winning everything to be like, so what? I can just get away with what I'm doing now. No, no, no. That's not going to last. Like you've got to do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I've been reading a lot of Bill Beswick's stuff. lately,
Mhm.
and he talks about kind of like there's ten stages to your development. The first 1 to 7, it's all about talent. And that's like while you're going through school, competing school level. And then from stage 7 and above, your talent is a case of you just need enough. Your character is the bit that takes over. And I think like what you've said there basically hits on that mindset of it's important to stay grounded and it's important to understand that while you're winning everything now, it might not always be the case. And it's how are you going to deal with that loss? How are you going to deal
Mhm.
with finishing second? What's going to be your first reaction to that, and what are you going to do after? Because I think that's a very important life lesson.
It is.
There's
Yeah.
so much like that's what I love about coaching as well. Because like even though we're coaching sports, we're coaching athletics, we're coaching strength. There's so many little life lessons kind of in between all of it.
Mhm.
Going into if you just going back to the system, the school system, the England UK athletic system, and the way that the US operates, if you could, and I don't know whether anything will come to mind, but if you could click your fingers and change something about the system, what would you do?
In terms of UK system or
Yeah,
US or what?
yeah, you
UK.
through the rest of the world, don't care about them.
um,
Sorry to anyone listening in India or Peru.
all your international listeners. Um,
I'll just say it, this is global, by the way.
I bet it is.
That has been listened
I'm
to.
sure it is.
You'll be on every continent by the end of the time this goes out.
Great. Can't wait. Can't wait for all my fans to come flooding in. Um, things I would change. From a athletics perspective, I think there's sadly a sort of of well, like I've mentioned before about ex GB athletes like getting straight into like high up jobs. Like there's not enough actual support of grassroots coaches who've done well to then support them in keep staying with that athlete and being like, well, this works. We'll support you in trying to keep going. It gets to a stage a lot of the time where you've got a good athlete and suddenly places like Loughborough or GB suddenly go, okay, you've taken them far enough now. You best come to us and we'll take them that next step. When
Yeah.
it's like, but we're the ones that got them to this stage. So why aren't you supporting us to just maybe stay with them and keep it working? Why do you think we can't take them that next level? So I think a little bit of work on that would be ideal to be like try and support that lower, sort of not lower level, but that grassroots coach who's taken an athlete to a good level. Right, what can we do to bring them up rather than the top level going, okay, this is ours now. We'll take over from this.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that because there was a case recently where it's something that's quite common in football actually, where a lot of footballers will have their own private coaches, and there was a situation, I think it was Preston North End, one of their players got injured by doing something not even exercise related. I think they hurt themselves in the gym. Might could have just banged into something, but they got injured in the gym, and immediately the club have gone bang. We're not letting any of you go and work with your own private coaches. You're only working with our team now. And I've seen it on both sides because I've got guys who are going off to clubs and playing, and I'm working with them, and it's a constant feedback loop of right, what do I need to do with you today to make sure that you can play tomorrow or compete on Saturday? And what you've kind of alluded to there is you've got an athlete who has built up trust and a relationship with a very good coach over a long period of time. And all of a sudden, you've got this organization going, relationship over, you're ours now, we own you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like it's more than just removing technical coaching. It's
Mm-hmm.
more than removing programming from someone. Like essentially, like we mentioned before about it, is that relationship with the athlete where you're able to talk about very personal things, have very deep, honest conversations about stuff. I think I agree with you. I like that. I think that'd be a very good move.
Mm-hmm. I
Um,
don't know what that looks like in terms of how. you'd be able to change it, but it's something that does need to change. Whether it's like decentralizing that how it's done and sort of giving that bit more support for pathways in other parts of the country or what, I'm not sure, but it's certainly something that needs to change. I feel in athletics, yeah, in order to get the country as a whole improving. I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Um, Going into the more detailed aspects of training, team sport, American football, what should people be doing?
What should they be doing? One thing that I think gets glossed over a little bit because I feel like strength gets mentioned so much in American football. You got to be big, you got to be strong, you got to put on loads of like speaking to some guys and they're like, I've been told I need to put on more weight. I need to be more, to be more robust, to take on challenges, to be able to put weight back onto a challenge. That's great. The thing I feel gets glossed over a bit maybe is that maintenance work that they do. So like doing the stretching, doing the prehab rehab stuff. I feel like that maybe isn't quite as big, and I feel like that's something that should be done a bit more. So like for example, at the start of the sessions that I do for the sprint stuff, making sure they do things like tantrums, make sure they do hip flexor strengthening work, stuff like that. And I'll introduce a few more things like come the winter as well, because as much as that's linked to sprinting, it's good for sprinting like speed and stuff. It's also the preventative stuff to make sure people can actually withstand the rigors of sprinting and hopefully playing American football as well. So I think making sure they do that maintenance work is such a big thing to me. Like making sure they do that.
Yeah. Just as a bit of a selling point, how much of a role does speed have on influencing strength? So you mentioned like strength gets mentioned a lot in American football, and I know from my point of view, the nervous system plays such a big role with it, and like really like strength can influence speed, but I think it also works the other way. Like if you can activate as much muscle mass as possible quicker than a lot of other people, you will be more explosive and be more powerful. So how much of an influence does that speed work have on overall strength? Because I mean, when I was at Loughborough, we occasionally had quite a few guys coming into the gym who they were clearly track sprinters, but they would be coming in and they'd be squatting 250 like it was nothing to them. They would power clean in 160, 180, and you look at them and it's not that that's what they don't just go and strength train, they don't power lift all day, every day. They're a track athlete, they're incredibly quick, and they can just go and move a barbell around like it's nothing to them.
Mm-hmm.
What's your thoughts and experience on that? And how
I,
much could speed work be beneficial for even the bigger positions like O line, D line?
I think it's really crucial. And having conversations with some of the O and D line over the last few months, um, they've certainly found it's useful because even though they're not moving more than like what 5 to 10 yards, that initial sort of reaction out to be able to sort of get off your feet and go bang. Sprint work can play a big part in that, but you're right. It then leads to that strength work supplementing it almost in that sense of getting off the mark, being able to put that power down. But I think sprint work is good in terms of being able to know what your body's doing when you're trying to move, like trying to have that internal feedback of right when I do actually start pushing out and going into a tackle by doing running drills and learning what angle your foot is at and how you actually push out, what angle is my body at, what am I engaging, like am I engaging my hips to do that, am I engaging my quads, what angle's my ankle at, and that sort of thing. Learning that through sprinting can be so helpful, I feel, for like their positions, for example, the O and D line, for example, and then hopefully when they get to then doing, like you say, the power lifts and learning strength work like that, they know what it feels like to actually engage their glutes or engage their hamstrings when they're trying to do a certain exercise or something like that. I think the relationship between the two can be so useful um, in order for them to get that um, internal feedback and that feel of what they're actually trying to do. Because, like again, I go back to Jonesy, big strong guy, super strong. I'm sure he's super capable in the gym. I try to get him to do running drills, and he's like, oh, he gets really annoyed, like trying to figure out like what am I supposed to use here, like what am I supposed to do, and this sort of thing. So strength can get you so much of a way because you look how strong he is. Surely he can control different parts of his body, surely, but it's only through doing the drills that trying to send those pathways to the right areas that actually you start to learn more about how you actually are moving um, and how to use that power in the right way. Yeah.
What would be your recommendations for people getting started with sprint training and doing speed work?
Um, Make sure you're physically capable of doing it. So doing the right sort of basic core work, doing the right, stretching and body weight work to try and get your calves and knees in place where you can withstand the rigors of sprinting. And then just making sure you do the baseline of correct technical drills and learning how you're supposed to cycle rather than just getting straight onto a track and going, right, let's do some hundreds today, let's do some fast 60s, 30s, whatever. Because if you don't know how to move your body properly with drills, and when you come to full on sprinting, you could be flying everywhere. There could be energy everywhere. There could be energy going to certain muscles that are too weak, and then injuries happen. So do the base work, do the baseline work physically and technically. Yeah.
What would you say the main mistakes are that people make with regards to trying to get faster?
Not doing the technical work mostly. Like the number of sprinters I see keep pulling up with hammy injuries and stuff like that. It's because you're not running efficiently most of the time. Like there's a great coach called Harry Mara who coached Ashton Eaton to Olympic gold medal and world medals and that sort of thing in decathlon. And I was fortunate he actually came over and did work with Man United um, earlier this year because he was brought in because he was friends with some of the higher ups, and his philosophy is if you're getting hamstring injuries, it's not because you're too weak, it's because you're not running properly. So obviously, Man United, they kept getting injuries, and he said, look at how they're running. Are they actually running efficiently? There's no point trying to make them run quickly if they're not running efficiently because they're just going to get injured. And sure enough, that's kind of where it was happening.
Yeah,
They weren't running efficiently.
because there is an obsession in football at the minute in terms of data and what they're tracking. High speed running or high intensity running is it's almost like the be all and end. If like it's almost like they want to decide a game based on the team that's done more of that. And I remember when I was working in football, like a lot of the time I had the entire team for I mean to be fair, the way I got to work with them, I actually quite liked and I thought it was very beneficial. It was like the majority of the session that I did with them was the warm up drills and then finishing with some actual sprinting because other than that, they were never really being exposed to top end sprinting. It was all just high intensity running, high speed running. It was never maximal. I think, fortunately, in my time that I was there, we didn't really. I don't think anyone pulled a hamstring. We had one guy who had a bit of a hamstring tendon inflammation or hamstring tendonitis. That was pretty much it. Like we had a pretty robust group, and I think it was, I'd like to think we did the right thing by doing the right amount of technical work and then exposing them to that. But I think that's definitely something I've noticed in football as
Mm.
well.
It's it was the shocking thing that I found with American football. Like when I first started doing sessions with like Noosh and Jack and Stu, and I started with like a really basic drill session, like just doing like cycling and A skips, B skips, and a few other things. And I sort of apologized and going, oh, I'm really sorry. It's been like really basic, like this session, this sort of thing. Like, I hope it's not been like too dumbed down for you. And he went, uh, yeah, we don't do this stuff. Like, we go to like and I was like, wait, so you go to like GB camps or something, and do you not do like a running drill session into sprints and stuff? And they were like, no, not really. And I thought, wow, you people have got to a GB level in a sport where it's mostly running, and there's not been that sort of technical base put in. And again, that was another light bulb moment for me to go, there's so much scope in this sport for people to do even better. Like there's so much work you can do to get them not just running quicker and more efficiently, but just healthier. Like to be able to withstand the rigors of a game and to be able to run in a game like for longer and without worry that my hammy's a bit iffy. I'm not sure. Like because you're running efficiently. No, you can go into a game confident that I'm going to make that run not only quickly, but I'm going to make that run physically because I'm in shape to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So get the technical work right. What's
Mm-hmm.
your recommendation for rest and recovery periods? So, because I think from my own experience, people just want to rush everything.
Mm.
And you go from doing one sprint, and then before you know it, they've already started, they've already gone on the next one. I'm like, slow, steady on.
Mm-hmm.
What's your recommendations on that?
In terms of like running sessions and whatnot, I wouldn't really put like a running session on the same day you'd do like a team session. Like it's as much as we do like sort of bits of running in the Titan session, it's not like high intensity stuff. Um, I'd always, me as an athletics coach, I'd always split a day between running session days. Um, so like if you're doing like a running session day on a Tuesday, for example, I wouldn't then do a hard running session on the Wednesday. I'd leave it at least a day, let your CNS recover, and then go on to another run. If you want to do another hard running session, do it the Thursday or the Friday. Like give your body time to CNS wise recover to then be efficient. It's quite funny actually. I was on holiday recently and I took a book from, I think it was published in 1974, and it was a book about athletics and coaching athletics. And I thought this might be a bit of funny reading for on holiday because I love to get away from the sport. So I started reading it, and I thought, geez, these guys really didn't understand the CNS system back in those days because for they said the program, and I can send it to you if you want. The program between October and March for a 100 and 200 meter sprinter involved doing high intensity running 7 days a week, like sprint sessions, like high intensity sprint sessions 6 days a week, and then like 2 or 3 sessions a week doing circuits and weights stuff as well. And I looked at that and thought, crikey, I'm glad I didn't train whilst I was in the 70s and 80s because my goodness, how anyone survived that sort of training, I have no idea. It's
I
madness.
have an idea.
Go ahead. Yeah. uh,
Additional
maybe.
supplementation.
Maybe.
Supplementation.
Maybe. But, it's that sort of thing. I look and think there's probably still coaches these days, athletic coaches, who are in their like 60s, 70s. You know what? Actually, I've seen it down the track. There's a guy, bless him, he's 80 this year. And I'd heard some of his sprinters complaining about some of the sessions being like, oh, it's not really specific to like how my body like works well during the winter and stuff. Like, and I thought, God, that matches with what I've just read in that book. He's just had the same like training and coaching system for the last 50 years because he's like, well, it's worked for the majority of people, so I'll keep it the same.
Yeah, I think that's such a big problem in sport in general.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're going to do it this way because this is the way that we've done it. And it's just, I think you see it in every sport. And it's just, I suppose it has to be forgivable because it's what people know and it's what they're comfortable with, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. But I feel like as a coach, you have to be open to new ideas. You have to be open to learning all the time. Otherwise, you're just going to get left these days anyway, with how technology is and how things are changing. You have to be adaptable. Yeah.
Yeah. I love trying new stuff. Um, in terms of what a game week or a build up to a game week looks like, I know you mentioned there about giving the CNS time to recover. How would you structure that build up into a match day?
Specific.
Or even race day. You don't necessarily have to pick them
Yeah.
out. Or you could just go, right, you've got an event on Saturday. What are you doing in the week leading up to that?
So if it's, I'll take it from a view of a multi-eventer. So they've got a 2 day comp coming up. I'll I don't want them doing lots. So I used to be of a mentality where we try and cram in as much technical as we can, and like on the Thursday we're still doing little bits of sprints and a lot of technical work on the Thursday, and they're competing on the Saturday. And I've learned from other people that you're thinking to like a teenager's brain in the lead up to a comp. Their adrenaline is going to be up and down the whole week leading up to a comp. So I'm now taking a bit more of a view of we try and do as best technical work, physical prep work until like the Sunday, like the week before. If you want to come in on a Tuesday or a Wednesday for like final light session of like technical work, if there's like an event you feel like, oh, I just need to do like a tiny little session and then I'm grand, great, you can come in for that. Otherwise, have the week off. Like do do little bits of like stretching, and if you want to do like a couple of stride outs, really light work, fine. But with how their CNS, how their adrenaline's going to be peaking up and down in the lead up to that competition, it's sometimes better just to have the week off, just rest, feel like, right, I'm going into that comp physically 100%, not, right, I'm going to do a session on the Thursday in the hope that I can get something good done. When realistically, that's probably going to leave you then still tired on the Saturday. You're not going to be 100%. You'll be down at like 85, 90%.
Hmm.
When really you want to feel like, yeah, I am rested, I'm good mentally, I'm clear headed, I'm good to go. So even if you have that whole week off, fine. I think that's different for games players. For a games player, I feel like you need to have that little brush up of tactical awareness. So, like American football, you want to get, I suppose, you want to have people in the week leading up to it just run over the last few plays, just so that their mentality is like, right, I know as soon as I get onto that pitch, I'm ready. Because it's not like you're going consistently, like there is little breaks in American football, I suppose. So as much as it is a still tiring sport, I won't take away from that. I just think because of the tactical aspect, having that tactical familiarity fresh in your head is different from an individual athlete who they've practiced for months.
Yeah.
That physical, technical aspect is in there. You don't need to talk about tactical like to freshen them up right before like the game days leading up to a game or track and meet.
Yeah. I think the other aspect is like obviously because it is that team sport, you have to do that little bit more to just to be in sync with everybody else. And so
Mm-hmm.
the timing and the feel of everything's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I would agree with you on that.
Mm-hmm.
Listen, mate, I think we've been speaking for over 2 hours now. Hopefully people have listened all the way through because I think it's been an absolutely awesome chat. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Um,
me too.
you have as well. Before you go, where can people go to find you and speak to you about coaching, training, and getting their ass down the track?
Um, you can find me on Facebook, Alex Wort or Coach underscore AJW. That's the same on Instagram, Coach underscore AJW. It used to be longer, and I changed it because it was too much. And also, I got rid of the Wort bit because people kept saying it wrong. It's fine, don't worry. I'm not aiming that at you. Don't worry. But yeah, Coach underscore AJW on Instagram. Feel free to drop a message in if anyone's interested. Have a look at what's on there. Email address as well. Wortalex93 at gmail.com. Always open to inquiries as well.
Perfect. That's awesome, mate. Massive thank you for coming on and really appreciate your time. And I look forward
No,
to later on tonight.
no, thank you. I appreciate you asking me to be on.
My pleasure. Anytime you can come back on again next year.
Next year, that long?
All right, fine. I'll see you soon.
All right. Nope, sounds good to me.
Cheers, mate.